I've been working out for about 10 years at this point, and year upon year, I made gradual improvements, and 2025 was no different. I made one of the best transformations of my life. I got in the shape of my life. But towards the end of the year, I incurred a shoulder injury, and I had to stop training for more than 2.5 months. All of December, all of January, and more than half of February. But during this time, I didn't lose any muscle mass. I might have lost some of the pump, but pretty much all of the muscle remains as it is. You want to know how I did it? Keep watching this video. I'm going to spill the secret. Okay, a bit of a context about how I got injured. I was in the gym doing a barbell snatch, which is an Olympic lift that I've done hundreds of times at this point, and I was completely confident about the exercise. So the question is, how exactly did I get injured? The situation was a bit different. I was surrounded by a dozen athletes that I was coaching, and my focus wasn't quite there because you're talking to them, you're making eye contact, you're making sure that they're understanding what you're doing. And despite the weight on the barbell being comfortable, which is less than what my working weight would be, lack of focus and change in environment kind of caused me to lose track of the exercise. And when I was overhead, I couldn't stabilize my shoulder, and the barbell yanked me back, and I felt a very sharp pop in my right shoulder. At that moment, I knew that I knew that I'd messed something up. I had to drop the bar, jump forward, and then for a moment, I felt dizzy. I felt like I was going to black out. After that, it took me a lot of time to get back on track. The first couple of days, I could barely even move my arm. I couldn't do everyday stuff like washing my face or brushing my teeth. But weeks of diligent rehabilitation and gradually progressing towards getting better, regaining the range of motion, and then getting basic muscle activity back in to be able to move around and handle everyday stresses. That was the first step. And then I gradually stepped up the intensity, and a couple of months down the line, I'm at 100% back into the gym. Enough about that. That's another video where I'll talk about the exact rehab exercises and what I did and what not. But the reason you're watching this video is to understand how do you prevent muscle loss and how do you remain in shape when you can't train for a long period of time. That's what we are getting at. This wasn't the first time that I had been injured. I had an injury in 2018 too, but at that point of time, I was a lot younger, a lot less experienced, and a lot less knowledgeable. That injury wasn't nearly as devastating as this one, but it took me out of the gym for 4 months plus 2 months, a total of 6 months, in the span of 1 year, which was horrible. I lost a lot of muscle and strength, and it really changed my lifestyle around for the worse. And in a way, it was an experience that I needed in order to move forward and get better. And this time around, this is what I did differently. First things first, you've got to stimulate your muscle. You cannot completely stop working out. It's as simple as that. But you might say, hey, if the pain was so bad that you couldn't even move your arm, you couldn't wash your face or brush your teeth, how did you get to doing some sort of exercise to stimulate the muscles? My right shoulder was hurt. My left arm was completely fine. My lower body is fine. So work what is uninjured to the intensity that you possibly can. Okay? That's going to be crucial. Next up, the part that is injured can still be stimulated through some basic isometric exercises, just enough amount of effort to activate the muscle, some sort of holds, and then gradually work on regaining the range of motion. That's what I did. And believe it or not, it's really hard to lose muscle when you stimulate it just a little bit as compared to gaining the muscle in the first place, which takes pushing yourself beyond your limit and then creating a new stimulus that your body is not used to. Maintaining muscle is really easy. It even takes just 1/3 of the amount of volume that you usually do in the gym to maintain your muscle. So it's not that difficult. Another incredible fact about the human body is something called as cross education. What this means is, if you, let's say you injured your right hand, right? You can't train with this arm at all. If you continue training your left arm, your brain functions in a way such that all the strength and muscle that you gain onto the left side, about 30% of that will carry over to the right side without even doing anything. How crazy is that? You do absolutely nothing here and it still gets 30% of the strength and muscle gains that you got by training the other side. That's something that you really need to make use of when you're injured. That was about training, which is obviously very important, but I feel the next point is probably more important: nutrition and sleep. I understand that when you're not going to the gym, when you're not training, or you're injured, you don't have the motivation to eat as well as you used to, or even to recover well, because there is no need, right? You're not challenging your body. But this is where discipline beats motivation. You need to stay on track as much as possible. Keep your protein intake up so that you don't lose muscle mass. Try to eat the right amount of calories so that you don't undereat and lose weight. Because guess what? When you're not stimulating your muscles optimally and you're undereating, you're guaranteed to lose muscle mass. Whereas when you're in a calorie deficit and you're stimulating your muscles and getting good amount of protein, that's when you would be gaining muscle. You can't be gaining muscle when you're injured and you're not training hard, but at the very least, you can completely mitigate muscle losses by eating a decent quantity of food. On the other end of the spectrum, don't be overeating. Okay? Don't use food as a coping mechanism to feel good. A lot of people do that, especially when you can't get that feel good factor of getting the pump or working out in the gym. You need a replacement because it's hard to cope with. Food isn't it. Don't do that, because whatever weight that you gain when you're not stimulating your muscles and you're not training hard, you're not going to gain muscle, you're going to gain fat. So being in a surplus could increase fat mass, being in a deficit could increase muscle loss, both of which are bad. Try to keep your weight pretty much where it is by maintaining your calorie intake, which takes a little bit of experience and learning how to do. But once you do that, that's the biggest part of the puzzle. You do that, you stimulate your muscles enough to not lose any muscle, and you work the body parts that are not injured. Gradually progress to more advanced exercises as you're rehabilitating. That's all it is. Everything you need to know about not losing any muscle and strength, maintaining your body composition as good as it is, and maintaining your sanity in this crazy process. I told you all about it. Now that you know that, would you like to find out what happens when you stop working out? What happens after 24 hours, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months down, not training at all? Watch this video to find out. And until next time, take care, stay hungry.